that was formerly known as the Civil War. Oregon Ducks traveling to Oregon State, the Beavers. Whew, boy, howdy. This is a 3:30 kickoff. This is right after the game. Oregon is a 3-point favorite. Over under is set at 58 points at the time of record. Let's break it down here fresh. Bo Nix, man, it stinks because the dude was a Heisman kind of sleeper. He was gonna. I don't think he was gonna win the Heisman, but he definitely had put up enough to kind of get the courtesy invite to New York and say, hey, you get to sit there and hey, you had a really great year, but you're not gonna win the Heisman type of thing. And then you take a look at the Beavers, man. The Beavers have had a very interesting year. Their three losses are all to really good teams. They've lost close to USC. They got boat raced by Utah at Utah, and then they lost to Washington. The only game they've lost at home was really close to USC. There's some talent on this Oregon State team, but to me, with Oregon State, the difference between the two of these is Oregon State is a true team mentality. There's not a single player that we're going to say, like, hey, yeah, you could talk about Damian Martinez, the running back. You could talk about Jaden Grant, the defensive back. You could talk about all of these different guys, but they're pieces to a bigger picture to me with Oregon State. The Ducks, on the other hand, you're going to always talk about Bo Nix. You're going to talk about Bucky Irving over there, but it's always going to be the individual, Troy Franklin, the wide receiver. I don't know. I kind of want to take the Beavers in this game. I think they're going to build a dam around the end zone, and the Ducks are going to be searching for the water. I don't know, though.
If this was the Army Navy game, we'd say damn the torpedoes. But in this case, we're just going to dam the lake because we got beavers and ducks.
Quack, 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 Mr. Duckworth.
The coolest thing about this is for the Beavers, especially, this is a special season for them. Like Oregon, I think people didn't know what to expect. Whether they're going to have really talent or they're just going to be a mediocre football team. But Oregon State, this is the most wins they've had in a season since 2012. It's been a decade since they've been like this relevant, this aggressive, this successful. It's been an emotional roller coaster because those three losses where they played USC really tight and they only lost by 3 to Washington. Those are two games. They could be even a bigger spectacle right now. Really be the darlings of college football if they had found ways to win those football games. The Utah game, that's a whole different story. That's like, your best score and worst score dismissed. You get rid of that Utah one, just, recite it and move on. But having the best football season and have a chance to really improve on it in over a decade is, number one, good for recruiting. Number two, it shows that you are a relevant football program. And what you're trying to do, what you're trying to build there is paying off. And it's not just, they're another school in the state. They're not the Phil Knight University over there that has 1,000 different uniforms. They are a legit football team that's actually putting stuff together. They aren't a baseball school. And the only time that school actually matters in athletics is, come the spring. They're a football team and they're playing well. They're scoring 32 and they're giving up 20. The defensive effort, especially in the Pac-12, where defense is optional, is being nice. They're pretty terrible overall across the board defensively. So Oregon State only giving up 20 points a game is them and Utah are, head and shoulders above everybody else, and that actually gives them a legit shot in this football game. You're already at home. You're in Riser Stadium, where eerie things happen when top-ranked teams, when higher-ranked teams come in. Either it's a close football game or sometimes they pull off upsets. Ask USC. Can this game, which is a rivalry already, be magnified by a better defensive effort on their end? Bo Nix, a little beat up, still trying to recover from the way that the Washington game ended. They didn't look exactly fully healthy and fully functioning versus Utah. They did exercise those demons, but you got to figure there's still something lingering there with Bo Nix. He's trying to battle through it and give them everything he possibly can to keep their hopes alive for a win in a Pac-12 title. And where's that come into play in this football game? And how many possessions does Oregon get? Because Oregon State, you mentioned Damian Martinez, but the team is averaging 192 yards rushing a game. They are putting the football on the ground. They're 3, 4, 5 yards a carry, maintain that clock, playing the games on their terms, limiting offensive possessions for the opponent. And that's where that 20 points a game allowed comes into play, where you're not giving up opportunities And if they're going to score, they're going to have limited chances. And they're not going to score every possession. So you're going to be able to build that game and play it on your own terms and not let the opponent dictate to you. And that's how they've played so far this season. It's been very successful. It's a pretty good philosophy. If they do have to throw, though, in the limited times they do, Trayshawn Harrison's 589 and 4 touchdowns. He's that number one target that's going to have to be involved, and he's going to have his name called a few times. They're not going to be able to win this football game 20-17 like Oregon did versus Utah. They're going to probably win it, like if they do, a 24-20, 27-22 sort of 21 sort of game like that, where Oregon's going to get some points, but you're going to have to be able to minimize those opportunities and score every time you have the football. You have the talent defensively and offensively to do it, but they're going to have to play the best game of their season and hope that Oregon's defense has a letdown effort and that Bo Nix maybe not on his A game like he's been pretty rare. You want the Auburn Bo Nix to show up in this football game. You don't want the Oregon Bo Nix to show up. If the Oregon Bo Nix is fully healthy, shows up, I think over time the Ducks just get it done because that offense has been clicking so well all season. Is the pressure going to get to Oregon though? You saw it versus Washington where the coaching and the game late down the stretch, they weren't fully there and they blew an opportunity to control their own fate. Last week they exercised some demons. They played a little tight. They won the game at home, but it wasn't a pretty effort. If they win this football game, they go play USC for the Pac-12 title. If they lose, the season kind of just feels empty. It just like you laid a big dud down the stretch. They recovered from the opening game versus Georgia, and everyone had expectations. They were playing real well, but if you lose 2 of the last 3 like this, it feels like it's a lost cause season. So I think that also needs to come into the factor of Dan Lanning coaching his guys up. You can't let this season just go away and just die. You've got to have a chance to control your own destiny, take advantage. Unlike what you did versus Washington, you've got to learn from those situations and play a better full 4 quarters. Oregon State, you got nothing to lose. Nobody expects you to win. Play a little looser and play a little freer. You're at home. You're sleeping in your own bed. You have nothing to worry about except just go out there and win. Nobody wants you to win. Nobody expects you to win. And if you do, you really cause chaos across the board. And you beat your rival and have a whole year of bragging rights. So it's going to be one of those interesting games where it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think you're going to have craziness. You're going to have maybe a blocked field goal or a blocked punt. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to call the upset. I'm going to say Oregon State gets it done. I just don't feel that Bo Nix is healthy enough. And I saw there's too many blips in the radar the past 2 weeks that I just don't know if they have enough left in the tank down the stretch. And I think the Beavers get it done. They take down the Ducks in a big upset.
Fresh, I really wish that I could do a pretty good Hank Hill impersonation and say, damn it, Bubby, because you took my pick here, Fresh. Because I was going to sit there and say Oregon State because I thought that you would definitely pick Oregon in this game. And damn it, Fresh, I wanted to pick Oregon State and not you have that pick. Here's the thing with it. Oregon State's played this amazing like ball control offense, and there's like little pieces that you can see why they're so successful. And again, it's so bizarre to me because in the day of college football, where it's always like 1 or 2 players on your team that you're like, oh man, wait till you see, like Deuce Vaughn for Kansas State. We know that Deuce Vaughn's a really good running back, and he's going to lead Kansas State. And then you see whether it's Alabama, we were talking about Bryce Young, or Auburn, we're talking about Tank Bisbee, if I can get that name out right now. With Oregon State, they're just really efficient. They're really efficient. The one little stat that I thought, and I thought of Coach McCord, who listens to the podcast here, when Oregon State returns a punt, they're averaging almost 13 and a half yards per punt return there. So they're picking up an extra first down and then some. And how much special teams comes into play and means for Oregon State. The fact that you can get those extra yards. And I looked at Oregon comparing the two of them, and Oregon is averaging just like 6 yards per punt return. And they've only returned like 12 punts on the season, which I thought was kind of fascinating with the Ducks there. Frisch, I really, really, really want to pick Oregon State. And I'm going to pick Oregon State because I think that being at home, I think that they just are going to be too much for the Ducks. I think that this is going to be a team mentality. And I think that Oregon is overlooking the Beavers. I don't know how you can do that, but you are. And I think that Oregon's sitting there with their eyes on getting to the Pac-12 title game and having a chance at this thing and get some retribution, and they're going to miss out. I think they're going to miss out on this one. You shouldn't overlook your rivals, and I think that all the talk has kind of been for Oregon has been past this game. So give me the Beavers, and I think this game's going to be a lot of people are going to wake up Sunday morning going, what in the world happened there on the upper north in the Pacific Northwest? So give me Oregon State with you, fresh, and damn it, Bobby.
I think the funny one is who who does USC actually match up better with? If that ever comes out, we can figure that one out next week. But when you look at playoff needs, where Washington is mid 15, 14, somewhere in there, and Oregon's what 12. So neither the ranking is too high where it's going to be a major impact. But both those rivalry games, the Apple Cup and the Civil War, which of those ranked teams look good and give a higher ranking to USC to make that championship game actually have a little more flair and cook to it, because they're going to need all the help they can get with ranked wins. And it's going to be interesting to see how both those rivalry games play out. And if Washington State and Oregon State both pull off upsets, that actually hurts USC the most.
It's hard for me not to quote some Guns N' Roses when we're talking about Oregon State. So, what's so civil about war, anyways? All right, fresh. Let's go to the next. The next. I'm on it today.
Your
So,
fault. You're God today. You're on music trivia all out. That's
uh,